Ghettoes, Saturday lunchtime here again, and between 1 and 2 o'clock as usual, another edition of My Top 10. Very delighted this week to invite into the studio as our guest, incestuous you may say, but nevertheless, John Peel, welcome.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's very pleasant to be on the other side of the fence for once.
Well, we're delighted to have you here. Choice number 1, please, of your 10 records.
Well, I will start with my all-time favourite record, which is the Undertones' Teenage Kicks, a classic record. And the first time I played it at home, my wife, who's a great connoisseur, whose opinion I respect greatly, came in and said, "That's the best record I've heard since the Beefheart."
I've seen extremes so hard to beat. Every time she walks down the street, another girl in the neighborhood. When she was mine, she looked so good. I wanna hold her tight. Get teenage kicks right through the night. I'm gonna call her on the telephone, have her over 'cause I'm all alone. I need excitement, oh I need it bad, and it's the best I've ever had. I wanna hold her tight, get teenage kicks right through the night. Teenage dreams so hard to beat. Every time she walks down the street, another girl in the neighborhood. When she was mine, she looked so good. I wanna hold her tight. Get teenage kicks right through the night. I'm gonna call her on the telephone, have her over 'cause I'm all alone. I need excitement, oh I need it bad, and it's the best I've ever had. I wanna hold her tight, get teenage kicks right through the night. Where I am. I wanna hold her tight, get teenage kicks right through the night. Where I am.
Teenage Kicks from the Undertones, opening up this edition of My Top 10 with our guest this lunchtime, John Peel. John, you said on the Channel 4 television programme Hearsay some months ago that was one of the few records that perhaps would reduce you to tears.
Well, it does. I mean, it hasn't on this occasion, quite clearly, because I'm still sitting here reasonably compos mentis. But when I first heard it, it was one of those records, you know, that you thought, I'm glad that I lived long enough to actually hear this. And the first time it moved me to tears was when I heard somebody else play it on the radio. I was driving up to a match, and Peter Powell had a programme on Saturday mornings at that time, played it, and I was in a traffic jam just outside Stoke, and burst into floods of tears, which I do fairly frequently, I should say. But it's a wonderful, wonderful record, and I always end gigs when I do my own awful discos, I always end them with that, and it's one of those records which works in any context and pleases almost everybody.
So you are quite an emotional person?
Very much so, I'm afraid, yes. I mean, I tend to weep very easily, and when we're at home and there's something on television, we've got sort of friends round or whatever, if I call my wife over and say, you know, just sit on the arm of the chair, it's so I can have a good cry around the back, you know, while she carries on the conversation.
Going back to your early days at school, you went to a British public school, as indeed quite a number of Radio 1 broadcasters seem to have done over the years. This has been described as a sort of natural home for public school dropouts. How much of having been through that background and come from an interesting family background in Cheshire do you think actually influenced you to be where you are today?
Well, I think it's the kind of system that you either go along with. I mean, a lot of the people that I was at school with are now sort of Lords Lieutenant of counties, and that's a bit of an exaggeration, but you know the sort of thing I mean. Either that or people who've, in a way, rebelled slightly against that way of life and are now doing other things. I mean, like this, really. Quite clearly, when I first started being a disc jockey in America, my father was not at all pleased, because wasn't quite sure what he did want me to do, but being a disc jockey was pretty low on his list of priorities.
Did you feel that you were a revolutionary by very virtue of the fact that you'd taken that path? I mean, was it deliberate in the back of the mind at all?
I'd always wanted to be one from the age of about 10 or 11 when I used to listen to the American Forces Network and so on. And I thought, what a wonderful thing that is to do. But really, I started doing it more because I was incapable of doing anything else. I got 4 O levels, which I've never really had to use very much, or there never seemed to have been any practical application for them. So it's just been, I've just drifted into it as being the only thing in which I was really passionately interested in and really passionately wanted to do.
You've always been sort of privately very guarded about the early days, but I do remember travelling down for a Radio 1 week in Wales, and you were sat opposite me on the coach and admitted that you'd actually, for the first time in a long time, been back to school, and you've been very amused how some of your former school colleagues had come up and asked for autographs for their children.
Yes, because I went back for one of those reunion weekends about 4 or 5 years ago with my brother, and one of my brothers and his wife, and I think you have to go as a bit of a mob on those occasions, you know. And I did, as I say, very, very poorly at school, and most of the people who'd given me a hard time were miraculously at that weekend. And as you said, at some stage, a lot of them anyway, had to come up and say, can I have your autograph for my son or daughter? And I was able to say, I remember the face, but goodness me, I don't think I can put a name to it. And of course, I knowing quite well who they were, and it was a wonderful, just a few small pinpricks of revenge, but they were worth a great deal to me at the time.
Tremendous. Right, let's have record number 2.
Well, this is a record which I first heard. I used to live in Oklahoma and work for a radio station just outside Oklahoma City. I used to do gigs on Indian reservations in the south of the state. It's one of these things which sounds, come on, he's making this up, you know, but it is true. And I used to work with a band called Dan Yankee and the Carpetbaggers, and who were wonderful people. And we were driving back from the gig, it must have been 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and listening to a radio station coming from Memphis. And this next record came on, and it's another one of those things. Funny, most of these things seem to happen to me in cars. And we actually pulled over to the side of the road, and we were just transfixed. Otis Redding, and this is Old Man Trouble.
Old man's trouble, just leave me alone. Go find someone else to take me home. I feel my life and out you see now. Ooh, old man's trouble. Stay away from me. Oh, man, oh, man, oh, man, yeah, yeah. Oh, how, I'm down in my love. Why don't you send faith to just help pick me up? I've lived this way for so many years now. Ooh, old man, trouble. Help me watch away on my fear. Oh, man. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Brought me nothing but trouble. Trouble. I don't need your old man trouble. I don't want your old man trouble. And I just can't have no more trouble. And I just don't want no more trouble. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, nothing but trouble. Too much trouble, yeah. Nothing but trouble. Nothing but trouble. Please stay away. Walk on away.
Otis Redding from the album Otis Blue, one of his better recording sessions, I think, that one, and recently reissued as well, which is always a good idea. Does it thrill you when something's reissued because you feel that the public now get a chance, if they didn't first time round, to grab it?
No, I don't really think like that. I'm always very pleased if it is, because it means that I can replace my dodgy copy. And the Otis Blue LP from which this is taken was getting quite worn, yes. Hearing it again actually reminds me that there was another record which I should have picked and haven't done, which was an Elmore James record, Stranger Blues, which I heard under similar circumstances, driving through the piney woods of East Texas. More romance, on my own moonlit night at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning.
You do play a lot of fairly rare R&B tracks on your nighttime program on Radio 1. I think you've always tried to, haven't you? How do you see the program? Here we are, July 1984, and this is a sort of a big question, really, John, but you have always strived, I think, to be not necessarily first on the case, but to be an innovator as far as music is concerned. And yet, there are certain areas of music on your program where you do enjoy going back, and others where you don't, and we'll maybe get to that later in the program. But rhythm and blues certainly seems to be one where you like going back to years gone by.
Well, for several reasons. One, because a lot of particularly the recent compilation LPs, which have been coming from Kent and Ace and Charlie Records and one or two other labels, there are mainly things which I've never heard before, you know. And I've been also playing one or two old jazz records, because they were things which existed during my lifetime, or were issued during my lifetime, but which I'd never previously heard. So that's quite exciting. And I do occasionally like, I mean, it is a bit self-indulgent, but I do like to put a few of my old favourites from that era in, because I know that the majority of the people who listen to the programme probably won't have heard them before either, or won't know them terribly well. And I think it's useful. I mean, I try and play as much modern music as is possible, but the occasional reference point from the past, I think, is quite useful as well. Something that it helps you to identify the other things that are going on now.
The arrival of new wave music, if we can call it that, with the Pistols and the Clash and bands of that ilk, was obviously a healthy injection into what you were trying to do in the evening, and you were on the case before everybody else, as indeed you usually have been. But since then, I wonder how you feel the music scene has gone, and whether it's perhaps been more of a struggle to find things which are new coming through.
Well, that's certainly true. It's not a struggle that I object to, though. I mean, I quite like rootling around trying to find stuff. We're going through a rather fallow period at the moment, I think, and this is largely because, and it's not like anti-large record companies in some kind of rather hysterical way, but whenever the major record companies, and I think you have to include Virgin, for example, as a major record company now, whenever they get back in control, there tends to be less innovative and exciting music around, because almost by definition, I mean, they have to, they've made these investments, they have to see them in terms of years rather than months. And so the things tend to sort of flatten out and become rather safe. And of course, at the moment, there's also the extra dimension of the video. And I feel particularly with a lot of the records, singles that you get coming in sort of picture sleeves and things, and you look at the photograph of the band on the front of it, and you feel that they've been chosen because they're going to look terrific in the video, rather than because they've got anything interesting to do musically.
If now I suddenly from nowhere produced a tape of John Peel broadcasting in America, would you be terribly embarrassed and want to crawl under the carpet?
Oh, I think so, yes. And I think you always should be, too, because I think it's quite important, really, that you should be embarrassed by what you've just done. I mean, whatever it is that you're doing, because you should feel that you're capable of doing better. That's why I never listen to recordings of my programs and things, because I genuinely find them acutely embarrassing. And if I do hear any of them, occasionally you have to monitor yourself to see if you're saying too often. And if I do listen to them, I always think, can't wait to get back again on Monday, you know, to try and sort all of that out and do a proper programme.
Was it fun in those days? Because I seem to remember reading in the past that you said you conned your way into a job partly because you claimed to have sort of known the Beatles and been part of the Mersey scene.
Well, the Americans, you know, I mean, in Texas, in Dallas, where I was living at the time, I used to meet a lot of Americans who'd served over here during the war, and almost invariably when they met you and found out that you were from England, they'd say, hey, listen, I was stationed in your Leicestershire during the war, and I met this guy called Bill. Listen, do you know Bill from Leicestershire? And if you said, no, I don't think I do, they'd really be quite hurt. So it just got easier to say, yes, I do believe I do. So I rather capitalised on this naivety, because they all assumed that everybody in Britain knew everybody else. So when the Beatles came along, I didn't say that I knew them, but on the other hand, I didn't say that I didn't know them. A sin of omission more than anything else.
Record number 3, please.
Well, from the Faces, and the Faces were my all-time favourite live band, and the best ever gig, I always say this, the best gig that I ever went to in my life was in Sunderland, the night after Sunderland had beaten Arsenal in the semi-final, the year they went on to win the Cup. And the Faces were the perfect band to capitalise on that atmosphere. And I saw them many, many times, and they were great friends. But there was one song, whenever we went to see this, the Pig, my wife and myself, we used to follow them around. And whenever they started this one, this is where we sort of copped hold of each other. Maybe I'm amazed.
Baby, I'm amazed at the way you love me all the time. Baby, I'm afraid of the way I love you. Baby, I'm amazed at the way you fool me all the time. You hold me all the night. Baby, I'm amazed at the way I really need you. Baby, I'm a man, baby, I'm a lonely man who's in the middle of something that he doesn't really understand. Baby, I'm a man, baby, you're the only woman that could ever help me. Baby, won't you try to understand? Baby, I'm amazed at the way you're with me all the time. Baby, I'm afraid of the way I leave you. Baby, I'm amazed at the way you help me sing a song. You right me when I'm wrong. But baby, I'm amazed at the way I really need you.
Paul McCartney's song, Maybe I'm Amazed, sung for you there by the Faces, and one of the choices of my guest this lunchtime, John Peel. John, you appeared on Top of the Pops many years ago, playing a musical instrument, didn't you, with the Faces?
I did, or pretending to play the mandolin, yes, when they did Maggie May. As you could tell from that record, they're always a bit chaotic, but the chaos was part of it. And as I say, live, they were actually better than anybody else, I think.
For want of a better phrase, you've become sort of one of the modern stars on Top of the Pops recently. And I wanted to dwell just for a moment on the subject of image, because obviously your image, like everyone else's, I hate using the word, but it's true, has changed over the years. Do you see yourself now as being image conscious?
Well, not really. I mean, the thing is that at its most basic level, this is not a terribly difficult job to do, you know, but the myth of any radio station, not just particularly Radio 1, depends a great deal on people being persuaded that disc jockeys are actually special and rather remarkable people. And as you know, some of our colleagues and former colleagues have believed this to the point of madness. And but it's something which I've really never been able to subscribe to very much. I'm glad if people like the programmes that I do and respect the amount of hard work that goes into them. But the idea that this makes you a kind of celebrity always strikes me as being rather foolish. And I've got a lot of friends in Germany, for example, and this is a phenomenon that's entirely unknown in Germany. So when they come over and say, but John Peel is supposed to be a famous person, this is not possible, they find it all highly diverting. So I've in a sense, if I've got an image, it's always been, I've been trying to avoid having an image, you know what I mean? Because it doesn't seem to me to be necessary or even relevant. But that, in a sense, becomes an image in itself, becomes like an un-image or an anti-image, and people pick up on that.
My first recollections, of course, of the name John Peel obviously align themselves with Radio London, the pirate station in the 60s, and your programme The Perfume Garden, which was a programme which surprised you, I'm sure, in that over the years it's become quite legendary, and at the same time, in the 60s, became very much a cult programme. Suddenly, I think in those days, nobody was really interested in what Kenny Everett and Tony Windsor and even Tony Blackburn were doing in the middle of the day. The big buzz around genuine music lovers of that era was the fact that, if you'll pardon the expression, there was this somewhat strange gentleman called John Peel who come on late at night with a programme called The Perfume Garden. Johnny, are you embarrassed to look back at that era?
Well, as I say, yes, and in the same way that, as I say, you should always be embarrassed of what you just did. I mean, but I don't see. I mean, it was the same sort of programme as I do now, really, but just in a different time and under different circumstances, quite clearly. And the preoccupation was with the music and the culture that surrounded it. And obviously, at that time, because I was. I didn't have any children and so on. I was a hippie, you know what I mean? And like Neil from the Young Ones. And
did you enjoy it, though? Did you enjoy working on a boat and being locked up with people who were anything but the sort of musical thinker that you were, I would have thought at the time?
Well, there aren't that many people, there never have been that many people on Radio 1 who shared my sort of rather curious opinions and tastes and so on down the years. So it's a situation that hasn't changed a great deal. I just get on with it, I mean, I like doing it. And I enjoyed being on the ship because I was coming to the end of a rather disastrous first marriage, and it meant that I could spend 2 weeks out of every 3 on board ship where nobody could get out and give me a good hiding.
That's one way of putting it. 3 words, Don Van Vliet, I think I'm right in saying, aren't I?
Yes, Captain Beefheart. I saw them supporting them at the Whiskey A Go-Go in Los Angeles. Must have been 65, early 66. And they were mainly basically like an R&B band, but what they were doing so far removed from the original source, it was barely identifiable. I thought they were wonderful then. He's a man whose work, I mean, this record is 12 years old, I think, that we're about to hear, and it does sound very, very contemporary. It hasn't dated at all. Big-Eyed Beans from Venus.
Distant cousins, there's a limited supply, and we're down to the dozens, and this is why. Big-Eyed Beans from Venus, oh my, oh my. Boys and girls, earth people around the circle, mixtures of man alike. Big-eyed beans from Venus, don't let anything get in between us. Beam in on me, baby, and we'll beam together. I know we always been together, but there's more. Mr. Zuhorn Rolo, hit that long lunar note and let it float. Men, let your wallets flop out and women open your purses. Cause a man or a woman without a big-eyed bean from Venus is suffering with a waist desiccation. Yeah, you're suffering with the waist desiccation. Put 'em out in the sun, and when the night comes, you don't have to go out and get 'em. They'll woman. Of course, of course. Ain't no snafu, no fault you're wrong. Set these out, big-eyed beans from Venus. I'll let a few out. Let them pass in between us. Distant cousins, there's a limited supply. And we're down to the dozens. And this is why. Don't let anything get in between us. Big-eyed beans from Venus. Big-eyed beans from Venus.
Captain Beefheart and the Magic Band from Clear Spot and Big-Eyed Beans from Venus. Enjoyed hearing that again. Do you look back over some of the bands you played and ponder as to why you ever played them in the first place now? I mean, how many of the people going back down the years, and there's a few of them now, John, have you actually sort of thought, I don't think I want to hang on to that anymore? Or do you treasure absolutely everything?
I keep all of the records in case they come in useful for something. But yes, a lot of the records which I used to play in the early 70s, I can't really understand now what I used to see in them. But the best of them, the ones that I regarded as being the best, like the Beefheart records or those by Little Feet and bands like that, still sound terrific. Or Ry Cooder's records still sound good. Then other things which I used to play, I just think, that is awful. Most of them now, the funny thing is that if you listen to Radio 2 at all, a lot of them are cropping up on there late at night, most weird.
Well, let us move now to one of the more recent characters to come out of your beloved Liverpool, but more of that in football later. And this is Peter Wiley, isn't it? And wow, what's happened to them? Where have they been?
Well, he's the kind of bloke who does things at his own pace, for which I admire him enormously. And they were with Warner Brothers previously, and there was a bit of conflict between the two of them because they wanted him to conform to an idea that they had of what he should be. And of course, he's not the man for that sort of thing. Bloke I like enormously, I must admit. And I'm glad. I dread the day when I can no longer have my stumps scattered by a new record, when I can't really be just bowled over by something. And the new Wah single is the first one this year that's just epic, breathless.
Down by the docks, the talking turned. I saw the sign to survive the other crime. Reaching the realm of no return. Don't charity just have a chance, and it's all up to you. Yes, it's all up to you.
most recent offering from Pete Wiley and Wah, and that cool comeback, which gets the old tingle down the spine.
Very much so, yes. The mighty Wah, as they've now become.
The mighty Wah, I beg their musical pardon. Let's go back quite a few years now and dig out an instrumental. It was Johnny Walker who had a Duane Eddy track as his signature tune.
That's right.
In the good old days of Radio 1. Let's just talk about that, because we mentioned Pirate Radio and the Perfume Garden a moment ago. You were, of course, here from day one, really. You were one of the signings, weren't you, from Pirate Radio? The revolutionary pirates who came onto land and lined up for that immortal picture outside Broadcasting House, well, actually outside the church, just around the corner. When you look back at the lineup in those days, and quite a few of them seem to have gone down the plug hole broadcasting-wise, are you sort of constantly amazed that you are here all these years on?
Well, it sounds rather conceited to say no, but not really, because I work very hard at what I do, and it's because, in a sense, it's like a foundation for others. I'm not saying that it's perfect. It's far from perfect. In a sense, I wish I had more time to work on it and more resources, you know. But it's a kind of foundation for what goes on subsequently. So, like, for example, if we're going to say that musically the focus of the station is going to be on the charts, if you look through the charts at any particular time, like a third or so of the bands that are featured in the charts will be bands that started out on my program, and I think that's the reason that I'm still there. It's because I work hard. I mean, I think a lot of bands, that when they start out, I mean, it's the first rush of excitement, I suppose, that appeals to me. And then when they run out of ideas fairly quickly because they're called upon, not so much, people always blame record companies and they blame the media, but it's actually the fans, really, who require of them a certain sound and a certain presentation. And it's this, really, that bogs the bands down more than anything else. As they become more and more successful, the requirements of the audience limit them more and more, you know, because as they go to a bigger mass market, it's like people who go out and they buy a packet of cornflakes, and the next time they go to buy a packet of cornflakes, they don't want them to be amusing, you know, they don't want to be chocolate flavoured, they want them to be cornflakes. And it's the same, it gets to be the same with bands, which I do think is a great pity. And then as far as like the changing within the programme, I relate this, as I relate so many other things, to football. Obviously, I'm very pleased that, you know, Liverpool are European champions and won the Milk Cup and the league title, and the boat race, was it, and the Grand National, one or two other things as well. But I'm really more concerned about what they do in the first match of next season.
Yes.
And it's the same with the music. I'm more interested in the records which I've got in the box in the boot of my car, which I've not heard, than in the records I've played in the week that's just gone.
So why Duane Eddy?
Well, just because I think after the Undertones, or almost with the Undertones, this is my all-time favourite record. I saw him at the Liverpool Empire the first time he came over here with Bobby Darin and Clyde McFatter, who was the owner-operator of one of the great voices. But the middle bit of this, when the sax stops and Duane comes through twanging away on his own, is like, for me, the supreme moment in recorded popular music.
Duane Eddy and Peter Gunn, written, it should be noted, I suppose, by Henry Mancini, an unusual combination, very raunchy version of a Mancini piece.
There's some strange composers in this. I hadn't thought of that. Henry Mancini and Paul McCartney we've had so far.
Let us stay now firmly in the city of Liverpool, for whose football club, the Liverpool Football Club, you have an affection which I suppose is quite unparalleled in modern football history.
Well, it's certainly manic, yes. It's and I always say, and it's not an entirely flippant remark. I mean, I think everybody needs a religion. Everybody has a religion, whether they acknowledge it or not. And that's mine, really. And it seems a safe and healthier form of religion, is in fact healthier and safer than most.
Would you, if you were offered the chance, like to take on the job of Liverpool's official archivist? I mean, would you be interested in looking back over the years?
No, not really. It's like I don't want to hang out with bands, you know. People are always saying to you, what's sort of like the Clash like or something. I don't know, I never met them, you know. And I just want to go to the match, really, and just be a fan. That's what a fan is what I am of both music and football. And I've met some of the players, but as my wife can tell you, when Dalglish did a programme similar to this, actually, a few years ago, I wanted to bring the children in and have him bless them, but she said he probably wouldn't understand that. But a very nice man, as it turns out, because it's always terrifying to meet people that you really admire in case they turn out to be complete twerps. But
was there not a marvellous story that your producer John Waters once arranged on your birthday to have Kenneth Dalglish phone you in the studio, and you quite convinced that it wasn't him, and there was a bit of a giggle?
He's one of the engineers, actually, who was on the programme, and he did exactly that, yes. And some of there's Kenny Dalglish on the phone. He said, oh, yeah, come on, who's this? You know, come on, who's messing about? But it was, of course, yes, a nice birthday present.
What are we going to play, tied in with the football club?
Well, this is something which nobody sings at the match anymore, you know, because they're always regarded as mainly people who come from crew and things like this, you know, who do the singing at the matches. So this is an old record, and people will say I shouldn't really play it. There is, in the middle of it, somebody shouts Everton as well, which in view of the Cup final triumph I think is entirely appropriate. But this is the Cop Choir, the greatest group on earth, and You'll Never Walk Alone.
Do you think that a sense of humour, as Ken Dodd once told me in an interview, is of vital importance if you're a Liverpudlian? Because Tarbuck, Dodd, everybody, Freddie Starr, who's come out of that area, stresses this necessity to have a sense of humour, to live within that environment. Do you think that's true?
Well, there are a couple of points. One is, of course, that I come from the other side of the river. So
yes, you're from the Wirral, aren't
you? That's right, yes.
Yeah.
So that means that every time I go out for a match, I get derision heaped on me in great quantities. And the ironic thing is that the people who go around saying, oh, you know, all Liverpudlians have got a great sense of humour, and the people who actually make a living out of being funny Liverpudlians seem to be the least funny of them. I mean, no names, no pactra, but amongst those that you mentioned are some of my very least favourite comedians.
But the Cop have a marvellous sense of humour. I mean, I remember a story, I don't know if it was you or somebody else told me, that Liverpool playing against the German side at Anfield, and the Cop shouted something like, we won the war, you came second. I mean, it's that sort of marvellous instant sense of humour that they seem to contrive.
Yes, but as I say, there's not so much of it about these days, which is a great pity. I mean, because singing is no longer voguish, which, as I say, is a pity.
Now, over the last few months, the Cocteau twins are a name which has been much mentioned on John Peel's late night programme.
Scottish as well.
Ah, yes.
It all ties in so cleverly.
Tell us what we're going to play from their repertoire.
Well, this is my favourite record of last year, and they were one of those bands again, you know, like when I first heard them, I thought, Oh, great, I'm glad I lived long enough to hear this. My favourite record of last year, from the Flagstones.
At times I've seen you from the Orient. At times I've seen you from the Flagstones. At times I've seen you from the Orient.
Cocteau twins and From the Flagstones. It's a very, very pleasant voice, actually. I like listening to that.
Well, I like the extreme voices. I was just thinking that over the years, it's always been the people who've got the really idiosyncratic voices that I like. Beefheart, Mark Bolan, Rod Stewart, Elizabeth Fraser, the Cocteaus, Mark Smith of the Fall, people like that.
I remember in the good old days of Radio 1, just talking back for a moment, John Peel going out and doing the road show. I think it was Radio 1 Club, actually. If, for instance, John, something terrible happened next week and you were in London early in the morning and you got a phone call saying, would you come in and do the breakfast show, how would you relish that prospect nowadays?
I'd love to do it. I'd be knocked out. I really would. Be really made up with that.
But would you
I think I'd do it very well, to be honest.
But would you be the John Peel that we hear in the evening, or would you be the John Peel having fun on the breakfast show?
Well, I mean, I have fun in the evening in my own quiet and unobtrusive way. And obviously in the morning I feel jollier, as one by and large does. I think I'd do quite a good one.
Do you feel that there is, in the evenings, and at all other times, because you make fairly frequent television appearances now, in a position of some authority, that there is a necessity to have the sense of humour which has become synonymous with the name John Peel? Because whether you think you've got one or not, I think you undoubtedly have. You're a sort of miniature master of some very interesting quotes over the years, I think. But is there pressure on you? I mean, I always listen to you when you're on Round Table, and I think probably more than anyone else on the Radio 1 staff, there's pressure for you to perform in some strange way when you're on Round Table, because people expect you to be funny, funny stroke cynical or whatever, more than anyone else, perhaps.
I must admit, I don't feel any pressure, and usually these days they always put me on Round Table with somebody who disarms me totally, like the most recent one I did a few months ago was with Tracy, and she was just so charming and so instantly likeable, and also very forthright, that I was completely disarmed. So my role as sort of potential hatchet man, she removed my hatchet and hid it right from the start.
So if you look back, you've been on, yes, Sheena Easton, Claire Grogan, people like this.
Yes, yes. Stephanie de Sykes in another
Stephanie
generation.
dislikes him another generation. I tried extremely hard on this programme because most artists, recording artists who come in, tend to shy away from the subject, not to discuss the music press. But I will do with you just for a moment, if I may, John, because you have, I think, for some years been almost the darling of the British popular music press. You've constantly won polls through your own hard work, I know. But I wonder what you feel about the music press now, as compared with the music press when you started broadcasting and in the 70s and as it's progressed through, because it does strike me that it has produced without doubt some great characters, but I often feel that they've created their own imagery by slating the talents of other people.
Well, I think that's easy to do, actually. This is one of the reasons why I've very rarely, in the past, on Roundtable, and back in the days when I used to review singles for Disc, I very rarely slagged off records. In fact, I didn't ever, I think, slag records off, because I was, being rather soft bloke, actually, at heart, I used to think, well, people's mums and dads are going to read this. I know that sounds rather puny and pathetic, but it is what I felt. So, by and large, it was only the people who, in my view, had too high opinion of themselves anyway, that I used to give a good battering to. And I think with the music papers, I never read interviews, to be honest with you. When you see there's like a 4-page interview with some bass player, I always turn on to, I just read the gossip and the reviews. And of course, with the reviews, what you do is somebody agrees with you is a great reviewer, and somebody who doesn't is obviously hopeless at his job, and it's always been the same. I mean, I like the music papers. I would like to have a complete set of melody makers, because about 10, 12 years ago, I had to do a piece for Radio 1 about, there was the 50th anniversary, I think, of the Melody Maker, so it was about 1973, 74, and I went back and looked through their files, and in the very first issue, I think it was, the lead article was on, is there a place for the banjo in the modern dance orchestra? And the papers which are being published now have got to seem just as absurd and grotesque.
We come now to choice number 9.
Yes, this is, in a sense, it's symptomatic of a whole buried area of music. As far as I know, it's the only record this bloke made, and I wrote to a chap who specialises in deep soul records up in Wakefield, I don't know if he's still in business, and said, just send us like 15 or 20 of what you regard as being the very best records, and this is one that he sent me. And the man's voice is just stunning, and what is so frustrating about it is the knowledge that he's probably still alive, working as a janitor or something like that. Nobody's interested in recording him, because even somebody like Percy Sledge is without a recording contract at the moment, I understand, which to me is outrageous. He's called Stanley Winston, and this is No More Ghettos in America.
You know, today, my friends, so many of us bathing in luxury, fame and fortune, riches, and yet some of us have so little. Some of us today doesn't even know the ghetto exists in America today. But I don't think there could be another ghetto in America today. Not for me. You know something else today? Some of us have only to look outside our back doors and look into the ghetto. So much sadness and poverty, loneliness. But you know, today, my friends, we got to stamp out the ghetto. There can't be no more ghettos today in America. I don't think there could be any ghettos in America. Not for me.
No More Ghettos in America. Stan's Soul Shop is the album for the collectors who want to grab a copy of an album on Charlie Records, and that was Stanley Winston. Very nice too, Mr. Peel. I expected something like that within the midst of your record choices. How difficult has it been, John? Because there'll be a lot of people listening to this programme today, John Peel fans and maybe people that don't catch all of your evening programmes, who will perhaps in their own minds have their idea of what you might pick.
People who listen regularly to the programme will have an idea the sort of records that are going to be playing. I mean, it's basically, obviously, the fact that it's a nostalgia thing, really. Most of these records have associations for me. I find it very difficult to divorce records from the context in which I first heard them, and really wouldn't want to do so. I can't just judge them as objects independent of the experiences that surrounded them. And people, I can't believe I haven't put anything in by Gene Vincent, for example, or, as I mentioned earlier, Elmore James. And I could go away and come up with a completely different list next week, tomorrow, if you like, later on today.
Certain people who I discussed this programme with said to me, you ought to talk to John about his over-generosity down the years, because I think it's true to say, without embarrassing you in any way, but in the old days, and you already stated that you were a hippie, with a capital H at one stage of your life, I know for a fact that your place of abode in London was inundated with friends who used to sort of park themselves in the lounge or wherever, and I hear stories that you used to come home at night and find nothing in the fridge but never actually react to it.
Yes, I suppose I'm less generous now, obviously, because I've got an army of small children to be fed and clothed.
But the story's, of course, about the John Peel gigs, where you give the money to the band instead of taking it home and giving it to your bank manager.
Yeah, so I don't do as much as that. Sorry, the last time I did that, actually, was with The Beat. And you know how every band has, like, a class... I should have put something of theirs in as well, actually. Every band has, like, a classic gig, you know what I mean? There is never one that is better, no matter what happens to them subsequently. And theirs, I think, came at Aston University, and I was doing the DJing, and I was supposed to be getting paid something quite mad, like about 450 quid or something, and they were getting 80 quid, and that wouldn't even cover the hire of the PA, you know. And they came on, and I'd played about 50 minutes worth of records before they came on. They came on, and they were just stunning, you know. So I went out afterwards and I said to the audience, who were very excited, I said, look, I said, they're finished now. I said, but I can play, like, records that you know off by heart anyway for an hour, or I can play records while they get their breath back, and I'll go down and get them to come out and do the whole lot again, you know. And they all said yes. And I said, well, I'll tell you what I'll do, because it's fair. I said, I'll give them my cheque and take theirs, which seemed only reasonable. But I don't do that very often these days.
But I know that the family and the record collection particularly means a great deal to you, doesn't it, when you're at home on your own?
Yes, well, I mean, that's why we, you know, that's why the pig and I had children. I mean, you have to make a decision, I think. I said to her, look, I could, like some of our colleagues do, you know, I could go out and spend every weekend night, as it were, doing gigs and cop a lot of money for it. And but at the end of the year, you wouldn't know who I was, the children wouldn't know who I was, and I should probably have gone mad, because I get very homesick when I'm away from home. And so we agreed that I'd just do it on a level where I could continue to pay for the records and the occasional bottle of wine with meals, you know, because people do think that DJs are millionaires, because obviously they see someone like Noel Edmonds, who's actually achieved that wonderful thing that we all want to achieve, where you actually just become famous for being famous. Do you know what I mean? You don't actually have to do anything except be Noel Edmonds, you know, which is just a wonderful state of affairs in a way. So you have to get the balance right, you know, and I'd sooner, I like my children, I like my wife, I like where I live.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years' time, John?
Well, I'm still doing radio programmes. I have no ambitions beyond that. People say, do you want to get into television? I like doing the odd bit of television here and there, but it's just as a kind of a little aside. I mean, radio is what I like doing. Radio 1 may decide to get rid of me because obviously by then I should be an immense age. I'll be 55. 45 this summer, you see, and 45 is obviously a crucial age for a disc jockey. But I hope to still be doing radio programmes somewhere. And I suppose I would like to go at some stage back to Liverpool. And it's not me romancing. I mean, people like our Brian, or Sue, actually, who's the programme secretary, and even John Walters is a cynical old brute. But when he was in Liverpool recently, he went most of the way to admitting that it is quite a special place. So that's where I'd like to go back eventually.
I can understand that. John, thanks ever so much for joining us. It's been a very interesting Saturday lunchtime. Let's have your last choice, please.
Well, I suppose when I'm at home and not listening to new records, to see whether I'm going to play them on the radio, if I have time to listen to anything for pleasure, it tends to be, actually, oddly enough, either things by Dvorak. Don't ask me why Dvorak.
Or romantic.
Yes, I suppose so, yes. All those sort of Middle European folk tunes and things. Or reggae. And my favourite LP of all time, and I hate people who say things like that, but I'm saying it anyway, is Misty and Roots live at the Counter Eurovision Festival in Brussels. And the spoken bit at the beginning of this track is, in a sense, I would like to think, echoes the philosophy that I have, or the programmes that I do have. And it's inspirational. It's holy music, it is. It's inspirational.
When we trod this land, we walk for one reason. The reason is to try to help another man to think for himself. The music of our art is roots music. Music which recalls history. Because without the knowledge of your history, you cannot determine your destiny. The music about the present, because if you're not conscious of the present, you're like a cabbage in this society. Music which tells about the future and the judgment which is to come. The music of our artist Roots, presenting Misty in Roots.
Roots music for everybody. I like to say good evening. Oh, good morning. This one called Mankind, You a Sinner. Roots music.
Lawanya dirty and stinky, Set Lawanya.
Mankind from Misty and Roots, with our thanks to John Peel for joining us on this week's edition of the programme, which was produced by Anthony Pugh. And this time next week, my guest is Green of Scritti Politti. But now with